Hi friends! Welcome back to Brilliant Blue Reviews. My name is Heather, and in today's video I'm going to be giving you my review of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Sorry that this video didn't come out after the first weekend of release. As I explained in my previous video, which I just finished filming, I have been traveling almost non-stop for the past 3 to 4 weeks and have not had time to go to the movies or film a video for this channel. So now you're going to get to pretty quick here. All right, we went to see Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. May or may not be the last Mission Impossible movie. Who's to say? Okay, and I'll talk about that in a minute. It was me, my daughter Megan, who is in her 20s, and my son Ben, who is still just barely a teenager. And we three went to see it. Ben had actually wanted to go last weekend when it first came out, which we could have done, but his sister asked us to wait for her so she could go to it with us. She's home right now from college for the weekend. Let me get the things you need to worry about stuff out of the way right now. It's PG-13. I don't think there was any profanity. There is no nudity. There is a very bizarre camera angle of one actress's, I guess we would say this area, okay, while she's performing CPR on Tom Cruise. And Megan actually leaned over and whispered to me and said how to turn CPR into a sex scene. That's about the most provocative thing you have in the sexual content area. It was literally just the way they had the camera angled with the shirt she was wearing and stuff. It was kind of weird. The main thing I think would be, peril. They're basically talking about the world ending in this movie. Aren't they talking about that in all the Mission Impossible movies though, really? So they're talking about, serious peril topics, scary stuff happening. I actually felt like it had some really significant Cold War vibes. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. I very much remember the Cold War. I remember making a note to myself of which buildings in my town had fallout shelters in them so I could go there in case Russia bombed us. Yeah, I remember all that. So this definitely had a Cold War feeling to it. I almost wonder if it was a little nostalgia on Tom Cruise's part too, because that's definitely what it felt like. It was that and the whole AI thing, okay, which they started in Dead Reckoning. Again, I'll come to that in a minute. The main thing I think you have to worry about with your kids, besides the scary themes and peril, is the violence. Again, it's really action violence. There's shooting, there's punching, there's doing awfully painful, icky things to each other. There's one scene fairly early, which is kind of gruesome. There were a few times where both Megan and I were like, I'm not big on close physical hand-to-hand combat type stuff, and there's quite a lot of that in this movie. There's quite a lot of one-on-one, hand-to-hand close fighting. And that actually probably is the majority of the violence in this movie is like that. So just keep that in mind. That's probably the worst thing you have to worry about. If you weren't following in the movie world like I do, they originally were going to do what was titled Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, okay? That's what they were originally titled. They filmed them fairly close together, I think. Now, filming and production of these two movies was a trek, okay? They had a ton of problems. I mean, first of all, the Mission Impossible movies, just by their nature, it involves a lot of international travel, a lot of international filming, a lot of preparation, a lot of stunts, a lot of planning. It's very complex. The reason Rebecca Ferguson, who played Ilsa in the previous movies, got killed off in Dead Reckoning, sorry if that's a spoiler, is because she, the actress, actually asked to be released from her role in the Mission Impossible movies. I was really mad at the time when I first saw that. I'm like, why did they kill Ilsa? I loved her. Okay, Tom Cruise's character, Ethan Hunt, loved her. What the heck? She was awesome. The way she jumped on men's necks and with her legs. Okay, but she wanted to be released because she had other projects that she wanted to do, Dune movies, for example. And she said the way Mission Impossible films, you're just sitting around for long periods of time. She has nothing against Tom Cruise. She has nothing against the Mission Impossible franchise. She said it's just too much of a time suck because you have to spend so much time just sitting and waiting to, and then you do your acting and then you're sitting and waiting. And it takes a very long time to produce these movies. She didn't want to be stuck in that waiting when she could be out pursuing other projects. So she asked to be released, and that's why she's not in this one. Okay, so they kind of replaced her with Haley Atwell. Haley Atwell, that's her name. Okay, they replaced her with Haley Atwell, who you may recognize if you're an MCU fan, as Captain America's girlfriend, Peggy. She first appeared, and she's a pickpocket, and that's an important skill that she has that comes in very handy in this movie. She kind of replaced the Ilsa character. They needed another woman. Also, something happens to Luther, so they brought in another black male character to fill the role of Luther, kind of. It was Degas, who was with the other guy that was in Dead Reckoning, the two federal agents that were hunting Ethan. The one guy, the younger black guy, he actually becomes part of Ethan's team and sort of takes the place of another male guy instead of Luther, because Luther isn't traveling with them in this movie. He's in the movie, but he's not with them for most of the action-y part. They had a very difficult time filming these movies, and the biggest challenge that they had was the pandemic. The pandemic messed up production, it messed up filming, it messed up the release. These movies were supposed to come out a long time earlier than they did and closer together. And it just got all messed up because of all the stuff with the pandemic. They had a terrible time. So it just took forever. So anyway, in the process of that whole debacle, they did decide to retitle it. And they also didn't want the two movies to be like a part 1 and part 2, although they really are. You have to have seen part 1 to know what the heck is going on in Final Reckoning, okay? So even though they wanted to disassociate them from each other as a part 1 and part 2, you still really have to think of them kind of that way. If you didn't see Dead Reckoning, please go watch Dead Reckoning before you see Final Reckoning, or you'll be lost. This picks up basically pretty much straight off of what happened at the end of Dead Reckoning. I mean, honestly, it could be one giant 5-hour movie. It could. This movie is 2 hours and 50 minutes long, all right? I will tell you that the first 45 to 60 minutes very easily could have been cut. I don't know why they left it in there. I was so bored. It was so slow and so boring and so unnecessary. I mean, I was so bored, I actually stood up and went and walked around and paced around over in the aisle in the back of the theater because I was like, what the heck? I held in there though, confident that eventually the movie would get going, which it does, but it takes about an hour, okay? The second and third hour of the movie are great. They're very entertaining. They're everything you like about Mission Impossible movies. There's a whole bunch of fun stuff in there. There's lots of humor. There's tons of action. Really, really good. Love the second and third act. Parts of it were just absolutely bonkers, okay? I mean, honestly, if you don't need the review, because that's what it is, the first hour is review. If you don't need it, you could honestly come in about 45 minutes into the movie and not miss anything. What I described to the kids, and they agreed with me, if you watch Friends, okay, we own Friends. We own all 10 seasons. We watch Friends all the time. I always win Friends trivia when we go on cruises because I know everything there is to know about Friends because I've seen every episode a zillion times. Every once in a while when Friends aired, and it's on the discs too, there's one of these clips episodes where there's a very minimal plot and the actor's like, I don't know, they wanted the day off or something. They're barely in it and they're talking about and reminiscing about something. And they're just these clips from previous episodes. That's what the first 45 to 60 minutes of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning is. And they keep showing you all these scenes and then they keep jumping around in time too, which Megan said really bothered her. They keep jumping around in time within the timeline of the current movie and what's happening. They keep going back and forth with stuff with like Luther in the lab and the things that are actually happening in the present. They also say several times, they implied that the year is 2026, which is weird. And I wonder if at some point during the production of the movie, they actually were thinking that it wasn't going to be released until 2026. because we saw this in May of 2025 and they very definitely refer to it being 2026 a couple different times. So that was kind of weird. I mean, unless they're saying that this is what's going to happen in a year if you guys aren't careful with the planet and the earth and the AI. We all agreed. We all gave it basically the same rating. Now, Ben not watching, he doesn't usually watch my videos, but he not realizing that we use a scale of 5 on this channel to review things. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've talked about this before. 1 is I hated it. 2 is I didn't like it. 3 is liked it fine. 4 is I really liked it. And 5 is I loved it, okay? We all gave it basically a 4. Ben originally said 8 out of 10. And then we said, well, what about on a scale of 5? And so then he said 4. Megan said 4. I say 4. Maybe 4.5. If they took that first 45 minutes off, it'd still be probably a 4.5. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Let me first tell you the things we didn't like, or I didn't like. The couple things that I didn't like, besides that initial boring part that totally could have been cut off, that was not needed, and is quite a chore to sit through, honestly, at the beginning. It's extremely similar to Fallout. Mission Impossible Fallout, which is, it might be my favorite Mission Impossible movie. The details even are really, really similar to Fallout. The whole thing with the 2 planes at the end, he's trying to get something from the, straight out of the helicopter thing in Fallout. Almost exactly. Okay, it's just like they replaced it. Instead of helicopters, this time they use planes. It's almost exactly the same. Even the general plot of the movie is almost exactly like Fallout. So it's very similar to Fallout. And so the fact that they didn't really do much new or creative with the story kind of bugged me a little bit. The other thing that I didn't like, I could have done with less of the hand-to-hand violent fighting action-y sequences. I think they kind of dragged that out a little more than was completely necessary. Okay, here's the things I did like. I loved the characters in this movie. Now, you think like it's going to be the same core group of characters, but like now I talked to you about this already. Rebecca Ferguson left the franchise, so Ilsa's not in here. So we've got Haley Atwell playing Grace instead, but she was also in Dead Reckoning. That's where she was introduced. Okay, so she's in here. But then we have another woman, which I really, really liked. And at one point, Megan leaned over to me and said, I really liked that there's all these women and they're doing so many cool things. The women kind of really do save the day in multiple different times during this movie, okay? And then there's actually a third woman character who is a real surprise and very unexpected. 2 of these female characters don't actually really speak English, okay? You'll have to see the movie to see what I mean. One of them is Paris. Paris was also in Dead Reckoning, and the really fair blonde girl that you thought maybe died at the end of Dead Reckoning, but she didn't. She is now actually basically a member of Ethan's team. So there's 2 women like all the time. There's Grace and there's Paris. So they're with all the time. I get such a kick out of Paris. She obviously understands English perfectly well. But only one time in the entire movie does she say anything in English. She says a whole bunch of stuff in French. And the fact that we all speak French, I mean, she didn't say a single thing that I didn't understand as soon as she said it. I did not need to look at the subtitles. Okay, she says very simple, concise things in French. And she just like captures the essence of the situation whenever she does that. So I really liked that. I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the new team that they put together and what it kind of ended up being, as Ethan explains in the movie, Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise's character. It's really more that it becomes Benji's team. Benji becomes the team leader and the whole team is with him. The 2 women are with him. Degas, the black guy that I talked about before, he comes with him, like kind of, new Luther, if you will. And then there's 2 other people that join the team that are a very pleasant and fun surprise, including another woman. And they're the team, and Ethan is actually kind of off doing stuff by himself. So it's kind of Ethan's over here doing stuff, and then the team is over here doing all this stuff. Okay, that's kind of how it shakes out. And I liked that dynamic. I thought it worked well. I really liked Benji as the new kind of team leader. It was cool. And I really liked how much there were women on the team. And I mean, it was literally like half men, half guys, half women. So, I mean, it was great. Yeah, it was. It was 3 men, 3 women is what it was, what it ends up the team being. Okay, so that was cool. I liked that aspect of it. I liked I liked all the characters. I liked all the characters and the different skills and everything that they brought to the team. Along with that, and this goes to what some of the new team members are, there were some really fun, cool, interesting references back to Mission Impossible 1, the very first movie. And I loved the tie-ins to that very first movie. There are 2 characters in this movie that are directly related to the events of the very first movie. And it's really fun and interesting, and I liked it a lot. Probably could have done with fewer flashback scenes, but I think they're going on the premise that a lot of the people who go to this movie probably never saw that one, like I did, because it came out a long time ago. It's got to be 20, 30 years ago. I really liked the whole Cold War vibe that I talked about. Once they got going in the action and they started traveling around and they started doing things, it became very entertaining. And I especially liked the part where they have to go to this remote island in the Baltic Sea. That part was great. And I also liked the part where they're on the aircraft carrier and the submarine part. That whole part, there was a lot of the vibe of The Hunt for Red October. If you haven't seen The Hunt for Red October with Sean Connery and Alec Baldwin, which I think also came out in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, that's such a good movie. That's John Grisham. It's based on a John Grisham novel. But that movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. That movie is so good. I just love the pacing of that movie. I love everything about that movie. And there was a lot of the feel of that movie in this section of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. There's these characters, I think they're probably SEAL team, honestly, on the aircraft carrier that work with Ethan to help him do what he needs to do. And those people were great. And then the part where Ethan's in the submarine, which you'll know what I'm talking about from Dead Reckoning if you saw that. He's got to go down in the submarine to get the thing. And the submarine is rolling, and it's going to roll off of the cliff, okay, under the ocean, way deep down where he is. And so it's moving, and the stuff inside the submarine, like torpedoes, okay, are moving around and getting knocked, and water's coming in and out, and it's just a whole thing. The whole part where Ethan was in the submarine, all 3 of us were like this. We're just like, oh my gosh, oh my God. We were just freaking out. It was like one of the most tense, intense, stressful situations. And Megan said, does Tom Cruise just like try to think of the most stressful situations you could possibly ever have to deal with and put it in these movies? Because that's what it was. It was like, this was just insane. Like what? It was great, but terrible. Like it was crazy. That part was really, really interesting. But also we're just like, he's dead. Like, there's no way. He died about 16 times during this part of the movie. Like, there's no way this is happening. We were actually laughing. We were laughing, but also like cringing with terror, and that part was really good. That was probably my favorite like action-y sequence, I guess, was the whole part in the submarine. Oh, loved Angela Bassett in this one, by the way. I love Angela Bassett anyway because we're big fans of the show 911. Angela Bassett plays Athena Grant on 911 on the show, which we watch, which the season finale was just recently, a week or 2 ago, and we watched that. That was very emotional. Okay, now she was the director of the CIA in Fallout. I don't know at what point she became president, but at some point she became president of the United States, and she's president of the United States in this movie, in Final Reckoning. And she has a very important role to play in this movie. She does a great job, and I love Angela Bassett, and I think she does really well in this. That whole part of the plot, everything that's going on with her and all of her people and everything with the situation that's happening, that was really good and interesting too. That's a lot of where I got the Cold War vibes. War Games even, if you know that movie with Matthew Broderick from way back in the 80s. Kind of that whole feel to it. Also, Oppenheimer, Megan brought up, where they were talking about which cities in Japan to bomb with nuclear weapons in the movie Oppenheimer. Lots of other movies kind of drawing into the plot of this one, but that was really good. And how the movie ended was so well done. I don't want to give a spoiler, okay? So I'm not going to tell you what Megan said, but we anticipated that a certain thing might happen. And that was something we were kind of considering and preparing for. And how the movie actually ended, I thought was really good and really powerful and really well done. We all gave Mission Impossible Final Reckoning 4 out of 5. I would even say 4.5 out of 5. A couple of weaknesses that I talked about in this video, lots of things to enjoy, definitely worth seeing in the movie theater. Now, when we left last night, I said, I don't think I'd want to go to it again, especially because I don't want to sit through that first 45 to 60 minutes that I think could have been cut again. But now that I'm sitting here talking about it, now I would go to it again. Like if we have a boring day coming up in the weeks ahead this summer and it's hot and we want to go and sit in an air-conditioned movie theater, I'd go see it again. Did they end it? Is the franchise done? Did they set it up for another one? Okay, I'm going to say this. Tom Cruise looks rough, okay? He looks tired. He's 10 years older than me. Okay, the actor is 10 years older than I am. The character of Ethan Hunt in this movie looks like he's been through some stuff, okay? He looks tired. He looks weary. You can feel it in a couple parts where Tom Cruise is moving around or stuff where I'm just like, oh, I can feel the pain in his body. It would make sense that he would want to be done, but he also says, I'll keep making these movies till I'm 90 if they let me. Without giving anything away about the plot, they very much made this movie like a wrap-up to the series. With all the flashbacks and all the tie-ins to the older movies and stuff, it sure seemed like they were like wrapping it up and concluding the story of the Mission Impossible franchise. But they very much set it up at the very end that they can easily go on to make more. So it could go either way. There's no telling what they're going to do with it. They could do either. And either one would work. I don't even think that they probably know if there's going to be more or not. But it could go either way. It would be completely satisfying if they left it with this one. But it would be completely fun and great if they made more. And they totally could with the way they left things at the end. I hope that you enjoyed this film review of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. We give it 4 out of 5 stars. I would definitely recommend seeing it in the theater. Make sure you see, if you haven't seen all the Mission Impossible movies, especially 2 isn't that important. Nobody ever talks about 2. Especially, I would say 1, 3, and then Dead Reckoning are important to see before you see this one. Try to do that if you can. But thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.